podcast where nothing's off the table. From Bible mysteries and strange phenomena to the questions that keep you up at night, we explore it all with curiosity and faith. I'm your host, Courtney, joined by my co-hosts Caleb and Jeremy. Together, we dive into the weird, the wonderful, and the wildly curious. So grab your coffee, open your mind, and let's babble.
E.T. Fernherm.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry I had to do it.
So for our listeners who don't know, right before we hit record, she goes, I'm going to do something, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. And then she did that.
So if you haven't
Why
gathered...
did your E.T. impression sound like Stitch?
No, that's E.T.
Stitch is also an... I would like to point out that Stitch is also an alien, so
Stitch
that fits.
is family. Oh, Hannah.
Oh, my Lord.
Spoilers for our listeners.
Well-
Today, we're coming at you with an episode on aliens.
Yeah, we're going to have a close encounter of the
And we've
third kind.
already talked about the two greatest ones, E.T. and Stitch.
E.T. and Stitch. E.T. doesn't even make my top 10, probably.
That's crazy of you to say.
I hate that little guy. Stitch is fine.
No love for a
Get out of my
xenomorphs?
house.
You don't like xenomorphs?
Most of my favorite aliens are in Star Wars, so that's...
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
We're
So-
going to nerd out again. Here we go.
Star Trek. Trekkies for life.
Seriously, though, like, we're not just talking about aliens in media, right? Although that is fun, and we'll probably get into that.
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
Well,
Are aliens real? What is y'all's hot take on that? Do you believe in aliens?
I want to hear y'all's thoughts on this first because I'm really
Wow.
curious.
He just doesn't want to be the first to say.
No.
No.
We'll save the best for last.
I
ahead,
think
Jeremy.
I think you have to define what do you mean by aliens, right? This is-
Extraterrestrial life.
Extraterrestrial life. If we're talking about extraterrestrial life just in general, I think it is overwhelmingly likely that some kind of extraterrestrial life exists.
Interesting.
However, and this is why I say we need to define it. What I'm talking about by extraterrestrial life is there's some kind of microbe on some kind of planet.
Non-intelligent.
Okay.
Right, non-intelligent.
Okay.
Then you get to
Intelligent
yeah.
extraterrestrial life. Does it exist?
Then you get to, is there some kind of like freaky alien squirrel running around on
Yeah.
some planet? Also possible, I guess. Then you get to, then this is what most people mean by do aliens exist? Are there highly intelligent beings
Yeah.
capable of building spacecraft and traveling to the Earth?
Yeah.
That thing I'm not so convinced of
Okay.
for a few reasons that we'll probably get into. But
Yeah.
do I think that some form of life exists that is not located on this planet? Overwhelmingly likely. I'm not alone in that, by the way. There have been Christian thinkers throughout the years who've defended that. But do I think that there are little green men or large gray men or whatever in spaceships traveling here? I'm a little skeptical of that, but that's not to say that those phenomena are just hallucinations.
Okay, I'm gonna probe you on that. And
That's
that was a pun.
a loaded word.
Pun intended. Here in a moment. But what do you think, Court?
I will 100% I think agree with Jeremy. I mean, yeah, the chances of there being some kind of life form somewhere else is highly likely. I don't think that there's aliens, intelligent life on other planets, mainly because I feel like we would have seen them here, which brings us into another topic that we will talk about, which is alien sightings. But I have a different belief on what I think that is, and I don't
Okay.
think it's aliens.
So, let me. I'm gonna have to frame this in a couple different ways, because if the question is, do I think that there actually is
Are you about to rock my world right now?
alien life on other planets? The only thing I have to go off of is the evidence that we currently have
Okay.
regarding this. And I don't think that there is a shred of evidence that there is alien life on other planets.
What about UFOs?
Well, we'll get to the UFO. See, this is why, like, I know that people's minds probably are naturally going there, where it's like, hey, there might be a huge body of evidence,
Mhm.
but I have some interesting. It might be along the same lines that you're
Maybe.
thinking, Court, but also, might have like a multifaceted explanation for some of the UFO stuff. I'm not convinced that there is any credible evidence that we have for the existence of alien life And I think I want to push you guys on your assumption that it's highly likely that there is non-intelligent life. Based on what?
Based on philosophical reasoning.
Okay.
There's I forget which theologian had this, or if it was just a general thing, but especially in early Christianity, there was this idea called the principle of plenitude, which is that if like we look at the visible creation around us and how varied and interesting and complex it is,
Yeah.
why should we not also apply that same kind of variety and unexpectedness to the universe at large? So yes, you're correct. We don't have direct scientific or observational proof of life on other planets, but it's the kind of thing that, if one day we did, it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Okay. So then I think here's where I'm gonna press you. I'm gonna probe you, pun intended. The the question then, I think, based on what you just put forward in terms of justifying that, what you've both said is still incorrect, because both of you said it's highly likely, but what you said doesn't lead to that conclusion. What you said just now philosophically leads to the conclusion that it's certainly possible. Or that it may be. I mean, a stronger claim might be that it would, if it is discovered, it would be unsurprising. And I want to say that on those terms, I completely agree with that.
But what is the difference in that and being highly likely? I think maybe highly probable. Would that be a better definition for you?
Yeah, I think you're splitting hairs here.
I don't think
Because
so.
I agree. I'm not like a philosophical person, but I just feel like of how vast the universe is, it is highly probable that there is life out there.
I don't think that's based on. Okay.
I think I think from my perspective, I think you're being a little too skeptical here.
Do you not agree? But you don't agree with that at all?
I think you can take that general philosophical principle and make the further inference. Yes, this is an inference. I admit it's an inference, but it's an inference that has reason behind it, that has warrant.
I like ganging up on you.
Because there are so many.
You're dumb.
Like there are so many planets in our universe. There are so many different things. I think that it would be, from my perspective, it would be more surprising if there were not some form of life outside of the Earth.
I don't follow that reasoning.
That's fine. You don't have to follow it.
Let me be clear. Let me be clear in a couple of areas, but because I think this is interesting. On the one hand, from a theological point of view, this is the reason why I said I'm completely behind the idea of saying that if we found it, like that there, okay, let's say we investigate some planet or some moon, or whatever, and we find that there's microbial life or some other kind of non-intelligent life, whatever. I would be unsurprised by that. I would be intrigued, very interested, but it wouldn't shock me in any way. So I think I think what I would want to say is, like, the idea that that's true, that there is that kind of life out there, is perfectly consistent with my worldview and perfectly consistent with my portrait of God and Him as creator. So it's consistent with, but to me, it seems like it's a stronger claim to go beyond it's consistent with or it's unsurprising. It's a stronger claim to say it's highly likely. You're making
I'm making an argument based on statistics. So that's the jump that I'm making. So from the general theological principle and I'm making a further inference based on statistics, which is about the sheer number of planets, the sheer size of the universe, all of that. Right? Like, it makes sense that somewhere out there is something, just because of the sheer variety of phenomena that we have been able to observe.
Well, here's where I'm struggling with what you're saying, because I feel like you're just saying what we're saying. What am I trying to say?
I don't know.
I don't know. You were fixing to say something, and then
here's the thing. It's like this I guess is what I'm saying. It's like,
I don't see the difference in what we're saying. Is what I'm saying.
The difference is, I think, what y'all are saying about to say something's highly likely means that it's probably true.
highly likely.
But for
Right.
you to say that it wouldn't surprise you, doesn't that mean somewhere inside of you that you think it's
No,
it's
because
highly likely? That's
because
where I'm struggling.
no, because something might it not. I don't have any evidence in the affirmative to say that it actually is true. But if we were to discover a body of evidence that showed that it is true, then I don't think that there's nothing in it that I believe about reality that would contradict that being true.
We're not saying it's true though. We're just saying it's
Yeah,
probably
listen. We don't have
true.
to get hung up
Listen, I'm
on.
just saying we all think the same thing, and you just don't want to admit
No,
it.
no. You just can't see it. But the larger point I think I would, and maybe the bigger area of disagreement, actually is this notion that Jeremy brought up about the statistical thing, because I think baked into that, and I see where the reasoning comes from, right? The plenitude of planets, like how
What
much
else is going on those planets if there's
Yeah.
not life? And
How-
why are they there?
Okay, I have
Oh.
responses for both of those things,
Oh.
Okay.
which is
See, y'all thought
I'm
we were
into this episode.
y'all,
Let's get it.
Y'all thought we were going to talk about
Courtney's had
aliens.
too
but
much
we're-
coffee today.
But we're actually talking about cosmology.
Well, listen, they're related.
go ahead,
They're related because so a couple of assumptions. Let's tackle the Jeremy's thing first, and then I'll get to Courtney's caffeine addled prompt. So
gracious.
the question of like statistics. I see the logic there to say, like, there's so many planets, there's so many galaxies, and just to give our listeners sort of a point of view of like what we're talking about in terms of numbers, there are probably, like, don't quote me on these numbers because I haven't looked them up recently, but like there's probably like 100 billion galaxies. And
As the Hillsong song says, yes.
yeah, so yeah, good point. Yeah, great song, by the way. 100 billion galaxies are formed.
In
the nature of your
breath,
yeah.
the planets
So will
formed.
I is the name of
Yes.
the song.
Great song.
Great song.
Oh my gosh.
But to envision the incredible number of that is because in each of those galaxies there are billions of stars and billions of planets, and just in terms of the life permitting type planets, there's tens of billions of those in each of those galaxies, right?
And you're
Then-
telling me that it's not highly likely that there's life on those planets?
I'm getting there.
Thank you.
Listen.
Go ahead.
So what we're saying when we say that statistically, because of the sheer number of these galaxies and planets, I think bakes in an assumption, which is to say that given enough of these types of things, planets and stars, that it's somehow inevitable that life will form on them. That's a huge assumption.
I'm not saying that at all. Because you're kind of.
Then where does the probability
if
come
I'm
from?
listening to you right, you're saying that this argument about statistics is rooted in naturalism.
Well, on a theistic point of view, because I know I've gotten to know Jeremy a little bit. I think he believes in God. If you're if you're a theist thinking about this, then I think it's really presumptive to think that just because God created a lot of planets, that therefore He's required to put life on all of them. Why would that be? Why would we make that assumption?
I'm not saying He's required to at all. I'm saying that from a theistic perspective, if God made all these potentially habitable planets, which He did, then who am I to say that there's not life on some of them?
I agree with that.
You're softening your claim there.
No,
Notice this.
no, I'm not.
Who
I'm
am I to
saying-
say?
What I'm saying is
You said it was highly probable.
yes.
That's a different claim.
Yes, and what I'm saying is that the fact that all of these are habitable,
Potentially habitable.
potentially okay, fine, potential. I mean, we have
the
stuff.
probability
We
of
have
them
stuff
being
that lives
habitable.
at the bottom of the ocean next to geothermal vents on this planet. Like
Mhm.
there's like you can find life in insane places on this planet. So the idea
On
that
this
there,
planet.
it is from a naturalistic perspective, it is entirely possible and feasible. From a theistic perspective, if God is making all these habitable planets, no, they don't have to be inhabited. But from what I can see of the universe around us and from what I know of the Bible, he's a creative God. He does things that we wouldn't expect. Or
Yeah, like
aren't
create a
entirely.
bunch of planets,
Yeah, like and
but it
yeah,
doesn't have to have life
and that's
on 'em.
fine. And I'm not saying all of them are inhabited. I'm not saying just because they're habitable means they have to be inhabited. But I am saying that like that would surprise me. It would surprise me if none of them are inhabited.
I think that's interesting. That's really interesting. I don't have that impulse, the impulse of saying that it would be surprising. So if we found, which I don't know how we could exhaust the investigation, but
Yeah.
like if we found that there actually is no life on any of these other planets, why on a theistic point of view would that be surprising? I don't see. I guess this is where I'm kind of neutral on the question, because it's like
So
I
you're softening your claim
No.
because you said it
Oh, no, you're
was there was no warrant.
no,
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
were
I am
if,
jacked up on caffeine.
if you were paying close attention, you will notice that what I said was that if life was found on another planet, I would be unsurprised by that. And I'm saying the exact contrapositive of that is true, which is that if they found no life, I would
You
be
would still
unsurprised by that.
unsurprised.
Okay.
Right? So it's
So
I'm
you're just
neutral.
not going to be surprised no matter what.
I'm neutral on the question, because it seems to me that on a theistic point of view, it's within the divine prerogative whether or not he places life on other planets. And I don't have any positive evidence, that is true, to say that there is life on these other planets, other than the fact that there are lots of planets. But I think I'm not accusing you guys of this, but I have heard some people say, Christians who I think are like, who like the idea of extraterrestrial life, will say something to the effect of like, well, why would God make all of these planets? So many. It seems wasteful if he didn't also put life on them or have some purpose for them.
That's what I just said.
Okay, well,
I didn't say it was wasteful,
there-
but I said what's the point of having it all?
and I'm making a different version of that point, which is that it would surprise me
okay.
to have so many things inhabitable and they're not inhabited. I'm not saying that would fundamentally, change some sort of base level theological belief about God or the universe, but
Yeah.
I am saying that does seem unexpected.
So
And if you say to that, well, that's being presumptuous and you're, assuming things about God's design of the universe that you couldn't, my reply to that would be, we make these kinds of inferences all the time.
no, yeah, I'm glad that you attacked that straw man that I'm not going to set up. That this is the claim I'm going to make. I love this, by the way. I didn't know we were gonna
I'm
disagree this
here
much.
for
I thought we
it.
were all going to have the same point of view.
I'm jacked up on animosity, not caffeine.
Listen, the thing is I think that there are some hidden assumptions. And again, I'm not necessarily accusing the two of you, because I can't see inside your brain. I don't know what's leading you to these sort of thoughts, but I know with a lot of people I've read and talked to, there are some hidden assumptions that lead people to these kinds of conclusions. One of which, it doesn't seem to me, it is an assumption to say that God doesn't have purpose. Maybe this is what you were getting at just then, about it's presumptive to say that God doesn't have purpose for all of the vast plenitude of planets and other celestial bodies in the universe, other than the potential for life.
Right.
It could be that there are other reasons why he would have other telos, or like a purpose for creating those things. It could be that we're carbon-based life forms, and we actually need the balance of all of the celestial bodies in the universe having been created, and in order for the Earth that we have and observe to have been created. That's actually true from a cosmological point of view.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually necessary that we have all the galaxies and stars and stardust that make what we have. So I could see the utility of that. But even apart from that, the idea of waste that some people have in the back of their mind does not apply to God. And the reason why it does not apply to God, and so if we're thinking of creation in terms of art, which I kind of like that model, to say that God actually is like a painter,
right,
or an artist who's creating something of beauty, you might say that waste, or creating things without purpose, which we talked about in our episode of art, that actually a good definition for art is something that doesn't have utility necessarily, right? So it may be the case that he just made it because it's beautiful.
Yeah.
The other thing is this, which is that you can't have waste if you have infinite resources.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. The only reason we think of things in terms of waste is because we are beings who have limited time and resources, where
Finite,
God is
yeah.
infinite.
And what I'm saying is, maybe to put it in like art world terms, maybe God is more like an abstract expressionist painting shapes and colors without any discernible representation.
Yeah, the heavens
But
declare the glory of God.
even abstract expressionist painters paint figures from time to time. So maybe
Yeah,
there are
like the
some
Earth.
maybe there are some life forms on other planets, even if most of them don't have any, and that's not even necessarily utility if they're
Maybe.
inhabited.
See, so it sounds like what you just said is much closer to my position then, which is that
Yes.
maybe there are, right? Like
I think we're just arguing past.
we
each
could be
other.
arguing in
Yeah,
a circle
I
here.
think so.
But
I think to answer my own question that I asked about why it all exists is in a way showing us the vastness and the abundance of God. It's not a waste. It's to show, the beauty of creation and just the vastness of who
and
he is.
I think I just want to say, and again, I could be swayed either way, but I think I would want to say that it's just sort of a coin flip in my mind as to whether or not that vastness and that canvas includes other life on other planets. Maybe it does.
Well, I might be jumping the gun here a little bit, but so if NASA was to come out and say that they have found life form on another planet, would that alter your faith?
What kind of life form is it?
Like intelligent life, that there was another planet that mimicked Earth, would that rock your world?
My hot take is I don't take anything government agents publicly say at face value.
If
I
it
just
was
don't.
proven, if you could prove it,
If I could prove, I wouldn't be able to prove that. First of all, I mean, so there
if
is
they
a certain
came to
amount
Earth
of,
and visited us,
Jeremy's an alien denier.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying that, like, what we talk about, with one of the things that we're going to run up against on this subject repeatedly is the idea of what is proof, what is warranted proof, what is credible proof. And I think that first off, a good number of things that come to us about extraterrestrials or potential extraterrestrials is filtered through layers of people who do not know what they're talking about,
and
or
media.
sometimes intentionally distorting it for whatever agenda. And also, the fact that if something is said publicly, that is not because most of the time, now there are some people who are just interested in the facts and the spread of knowledge and truth. Those people are very rare. If an agency or public, private, governmental, non-governmental is saying something publicly, there is a purpose they are trying to accomplish with that.
Yeah, listen, I'm about that libertarian, don't trust the government life, but I just for the sake of the hypothetical here,
Right.
Answer my question.
Let's say that the intelligent life that Courtney is positing here makes first contact with us, with humanity, in a very public way, and so it's not filtered through some government agency or whatever, and it's just a brute
You just
fact.
know it happened.
Okay,
that it
fine.
happened.
I'm willing to entertain
Then
this.
theologically speaking, would that alter, shake, or do anything to your theology or faith?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm prepared to be surprised. I mean, yes, it would be quite unexpected and jarring.
It shouldn't be though, because you think it's highly probable.
But I don't. But well,
Not intelligent. Get
listen,
over it,
Caleb. Listen. Remember how I started this conversation, which is that are there little green men or large gray men or strange tentacled beings in spaceships?
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think
I'm
that's.
just
I
joking.
think that is unlikely. But that also has things from a physics perspective. So if we're talking about this, we could talk about the Drake equation, which is
What is
a
that?
I think it was Sagan
So there's a
Sagan
thing.
popularized it.
The precursor to the Drake equation is something called the Fermi paradox.
Yeah.
Right.
So
We're nerding out here.
This, without going into too many of the details, it is a statistical argument.
Yeah.
From a scientist that basically said, there's X number of stars, X number of planets, X of those are habitable. This giving, and you're assigning different percentages and values to these different variables kind of
It might
arbitrarily.
it might be helpful to sort of explain to people because there was this guy named his last name's for me.
Yeah.
I can't remember his first name. Sorry, my apologies to his family. But this scientist who worked at the Los Alamos lab,
Mhm.
so working on like rockets and things, and bombs, I guess, atomic things. I don't know.
When he wasn't trying to, nuke the world or
I
help
think,
people nuke the
yeah,
world,
I
he was
think
thinking about aliens.
I think
so-
the story is that he was on his lunch break talking to colleagues,
yeah.
and he sort of formed this paradox, which is to say, like, where are they?
Yeah.
That is the aliens.
Which is the idea that, like, given the number of planets and habitable ones and all of this stuff and the amount of time that the universe has been around, statistically there should be aliens that can travel to us. Now, the problem with that particular argument is that it's assuming a lot about the various values you should place on those variables,
right.
particularly how likely it is that intelligent life would spontaneously generate.
Which
on
is
any
the
of these
point I was trying to
planets.
make earlier, like especially on a naturalistic point of view. Like
Which
there's
and the Drake equation is naturalistic.
yes. So basically, like he says, like if there are aliens, it's a puzzle. It's a mystery to be solved. Why we haven't heard from them,
Mhm.
right? There should be, statistically speaking, if there are any, they should have made contact with us in some way.
And so then the question becomes, either this is evidence for the fact that this intelligent life doesn't exist, or it's evidence that there's some kind of massive cover-up.
Yeah, and
depending on who you ask.
But a part of some of the more modern versions of the Drake equation, the Drake equation just is like this, trying to answer this paradox. Like, why is it that they calculate the number of habitable planets, and one of the things that people say is, look, well, maybe the duration of civilizations that reach a high enough form of intelligence and sophistication in their technology and so forth that we would notice them, or that they would have the capacity to do something that we could see or notice.
Right.
That kind of life doesn't last long.
Right.
Because they kill themselves with atomic weapons, or they ruin their own environment.
And you can see how this reasoning is directly born out of the Cold War context in which it was first explored.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
That same Los Alamos lab, right, that developed the atomic bomb.
Which I think is a very funny kind of way in which it shows some of the assumptions and biases, in that headspace of the people who are working on it. But it is true that, like, people have spent money trying to answer this question, right? SETI,
yeah.
Which is basically a bunch of giant antenna dishes pointed at the sky, trying to pick up like radio waves.
Yeah,
and
are
other
they
stuff.
sending us a message?
Yeah, it's like what? So shouldn't aliens have radio, and shouldn't some of those radio waves reach us? And the answer is, well, we haven't really found anything too convincing.
Yeah. Were you going to say something?
Well, I was just going to answer my question since y'all don't seem to be answering.
I'm sorry.
I lost the plot.
Jeremy answered it. He said it wouldn't shock him.
Wouldn't shock me.
It wouldn't rock his faith.
It wouldn't rock my theological beliefs.
Yeah. My gut reaction is that it wouldn't rock my faith. I would just have questions.
Yeah.
Like it's not gonna change my view of God. In fact, it might actually affirm my view of him.
Okay.
But I just feel like I don't believe that it exists, because I feel like he would have revealed that to us, right? In the scriptures, like wouldn't there have been in the creation story?
Maybe not.
Maybe, yeah, because like we don't even learn things about like what happened to Joseph.
Yeah.
Jesus's
The
earthly
scripture
father.
is
But I feel like that's like such a big.
Well, but I think what the point I think that Jeremy is pointing to there with, like, there are major characters and plot lines and things in the scripture that we get invested in, and then they just disappear.
Yeah.
The reason why I think what this speaks to is the fact that revealed scripture in its received form is hyper focused on God's his plan of redemption for humanity through the seed of Abraham and his son Jesus.
But that's what I'm saying. So if there was life outside of Earth, because he puts such an emphasis on saving us and his love for us, wouldn't he have told us about if there were other planets, say that he felt the same way about?
Well,
And if is life on other planets, why would he not feel the same way about that? He created that,
this gets.
right?
I think the question behind this is, if intelligent aliens do exist, do we need to send missionaries to them?
Can they be saved? Does the blood of Jesus cover aliens?
So this is a
Wow.
this is a profound, I think, theological question that would arise. So to answer your question, because I never did
Yeah.
answer it,
Let's
if
skirt
if
around.
they make first contact with us, and they are intelligent, it would not, in one single, even a minor way, affect my faith,
Mhm.
nor would it even really alter my theology in any way.
Yeah.
But what it would do is I would immediately want to ask them questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because my curiosity would be this question that you just posed, Jeremy, which is God's plan of redemption revealed to us in firstly the scriptures and then primarily through the person of Christ?
Mm-hmm.
Is that plan of redemption isolated to humanity, which is local to Earth?
Mhm.
Keep in mind, or is that His plan of redemption for all potential image bearers in the
Yeah.
cosmos?
Yep.
And the answer to that question is I don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
And the reason why I don't know is because it seems plausible to me. And I don't know, Jeremy's smiling, so he might disagree, but it seems plausible to me that the answer could be that yes,
Uh-huh.
the gospel of Jesus Christ is the gospel for all image bearers anywhere. And therefore we would need to send missionaries and share Christ with them, right?
This is
Because
crazy though.
because the atonement, like the work of Christ upon the cross, might be intended for them. But it's equally plausible, at least in my mind, to say that given that the revelation of God and His plan of redemption to us is isolated
Mhm.
Yeah.
to this planet,
Yeah.
that it may be the case that He has an entirely different plan of redemption. And this is all under the assumption that the other sentient beings fell into sin and need
Right.
redemption.
Yeah. C.S. Lewis
Oh
raises
my
this question in
gosh.
his space trilogy, by the way.
does.
Go and read that. It'll give you some things to think
Yeah, I
about.
haven't read that yet.
I think my take on this is that if it is philosophically and theologically very difficult to answer this question in the abstract. If it actually happens, we have a very easy way to tell. If any of those aliens start speaking in tongues, we will know, right? Like, it's silly, but it's true, right? Like, this is how the early church knew one of the strong evidences that the Gentiles could be saved was because you had all these, Greek speakers who, it was clear that they were speaking in tongues and the Spirit was working. It's like, well, obviously this plan is for them
but
too.
then there's an even more practical thing, because I mean, not that tongues is not practical. It certainly is, especially in an evangelistic context. So yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah. So and then
but
at that point, all you have to discern is this truly tongues or not? And I think that God has given that discernment.
No,
to
they're
the-
aliens.
Well, but God has given that
if
discernment.
He gives the
to
interpretation,
The church.
This is going
God-
in so many different
This
ways.
I say that because it's wild and kind of funny, but I do believe that.
Yeah,
Like if this happens, there will be a way to know.
well, there's another way that it could,
Okay.
which would be Paul comes across some fellows and says, have you been baptized in the name of Jesus Christ?
Yeah.
And they say, we didn't even know that there was, or baptized in had been filled with the Holy Spirit. We didn't know that there was a Holy Spirit, right?
Mm.
And he said, you've been baptized? And they say, yeah, we were baptized into John's baptism. And he says, okay, well, let me acquaint you with the Holy Spirit, right? So I think I would be pressing through the crowd to find these aliens, because I would be like, I'd want to ask them if we could, we would have to do a scene like in the movie Arrival where we have linguists who are trying to, if the Lord doesn't give the interpretation, we
Oh my.
then we would have to like discern communicate to them in some way.
Listen,
And I would be like, Do you know who Jesus is?
Jesus.
Listen,
Jesus.
what
The
well
blood.
it's funny that you mentioned that, but what you're saying is NASA, you need to have us on the first contact team,
That's
because this is a
right.
very important
You
question.
got to get some
Because-
clergy on your team.
Because whether we need to start, pointing our guns at the sky or not is involved with this question as well,
that's
right?
right. And so
They might need redemption.
Like, are they like, if they are capable of being saved, then obviously they are not amoral murder machines. So anyway,
Yeah.
but the question of, like, have you heard of Jesus is an interesting one, because if you talk to people who have had abduction experiences, or claim to have had abduction experiences or contact with aliens, and this is a little bit of a segue, is that something odd surfaces, which is that a lot of these supposed UFOs are very interested in talking about Jesus and convincing people that the Jesus of the Bible is kind of a distortion of quote unquote actual Jesus, according to these beings.
Interesting.
yeah, the testimony of people who have abduction experience, that is a very common thread, a very antichrist messaging, which is odd.
Yeah.
Well, so I mean, we talked about if we believe in aliens and there's not strong evidence of their existence, then what do we think about these alien abductions and UFO sightings?
In my mind, they are two different categories.
Okay.
Because it seems, and not that they're unrelated, because oftentimes they, people who have abductions, witness some sort of a UFO type
Yeah.
phenomena, but they don't necessarily have to cross paths. So we have a body of evidence, supposed evidence, concerning these UFOs. I think sometimes people really get in their head this idea that UFO equals alien,
Mhm.
but that it's baked into the name, folks. It's literally unidentified flying object. It,
Right.
it means something that we don't know what it is. So if the question is, are UFOs real? The answer is yes.
Yes.
There are unidentified flying objects.
In the strictest interpretation of that term, yes, they have to be real, because there are things in the sky that are unidentified that we have documented. You can see the grainy footage on YouTube or whatever.
Yeah.
That is a UFO. That doesn't mean it's an alien.
It is not identified, but we shouldn't jump to the conclusion that therefore it is extraterrestrial.
So story time. I was in my backyard with some friends. Caleb was there.
Yeah.
And we're just sitting by the fire looking up at the stars, and we see, in my opinion, it was a UFO.
Yeah.
And we were like, what the heck is this? And they just kept coming and coming and coming. We
A
looked
whole
it up, and
fleet of 'em,
it
yeah.
was Starlink. But
Yeah,
I was
there
like,
you go.
whoa, for me, that was an unidentified flying object.
For a time, that was a UFO.
Yeah.
Well, and actually, we're not alone in that, because there have actually been pilots who have seen Starlink and
Yep.
mistaken it and not known what it was.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they do investigating and realize that that's what
It
they
was
were
a really
seeing.
cool experience.
In
but
the ones that are less easy to figure out, right? Like, there's not a Starlink that you can associate with it, or like the International Space Station wasn't orbiting at that point.
Yeah.
The popular explanation for many UFOs is that they're experimental military craft.
Yeah.
And you can see why that would be a plausible explanation, because if it really is super advanced and experimental, obviously the government wouldn't want people to know about it. I mean, that's not, I'm not saying that's an airtight explanation for all of these, because then you run into, like, why is this over a population center if it's supposed to be so secret, but in some cases that probably is the explanation.
So do you think that people that have been abducted by aliens and UFOs, are they being abducted by the military and
So-
having mind
Yeah.
games played on them?
So basically, it's like, if people do keep having these UFO encounters and experiences of, like, abductions, specifically abductions, not just seeing something in the sky, why is that? Are these real? Are these actual aliens picking people up and taking them on a ride? Is this a hallucination? Are these people just insane? What is going on?
So
Mm.
this is where I would want to say that I think that the joint phenomenon of UFO sightings and alien abductions is most likely explained by more than one source.
Okay.
So I don't think that there is an answer, a singular answer that explains all of this data.
I agree.
I think that there are more than one thing that explains the data. And so, for example, the UFO idea, the government testing hypothesis, I think has some strength to it. I mean, if you're interested in this, look up some of the early jet engine, jet propulsion vehicles that were created in the 1940s and 50s, because some of them literally were saucers. There's one in particular, I can't remember the name of it, that was developed by the Canadian government first, that is literally a saucer. It looks just like what you think of with a flying saucer, and it's it's a jet powered vehicle. It takes off from the ground. It doesn't have to have a runway. It just takes off vertically. And the U.S. government took over the project and developed it for years.
Now, the more conspiratorial minded would say, well, they developed that after the flying
Like it's
saucers
reverse
to give
engineering.
plausible deniability of this, or to cover it up, or to say, well,
But
actually,
it seems at least plausible to me that some of the things that happened, like some of the sightings in Roswell, New Mexico, or things like that that have become super famous, may well have been related to government testing. And then because they covered it up with an unbelievable story like, oh, it was a weather balloon, it just sort of heightened people's skepticism, which make them think that this is extraterrestrial. So that explains some of the data. That doesn't explain abductions in any way.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But on the lines of government conspiracy, there is evidence, actually proof, of the fact that the government, the United States government in particular, was testing mind control.
I knew it was going to go there.
Yeah. Look it up. It's called MK Ultra.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that at first glance you're like, well, that has to be a baseless conspiracy theory, and then you look at it and it's like, oh no, this is actually real.
Actual declassified information. From some of it's declassified from the government itself, that confessed what they were doing was that they were testing without consent, testing hallucinogenic drugs like LSD on people in hopes of gaining influence or mind control capabilities over these people. And so I hope you can see how easy it would be under the influence of a hallucinogenic drug that you didn't know that you took, because it was forced upon you in some way. And then you maybe being in the custody of government, of a government agency, and them trying to influence your behavior and your thoughts, how this could be perceived by a person who underwent this kind of a activity as an alien abduction. I think that's very plausible in some cases. So we've got a couple different branches of data points. There's government activity, testing in vehicles. There's government conspiracies of literally abducting and drugging people for hallucinations. And then there's another category that I want to throw to you guys.
Probably
which is it seems plausible to me that at least some of the phenomena of strange sightings and strange experiences with quote unquote other beings
and Antichrist
messaging that's common. It seems plausible to me that some of these encounters are not of the third kind, necessarily, unless we construe that as being spiritual in nature.
Right. Yeah, I agree with
that. So are some of these accounts people who actually have had an encounter with a quote unquote extraterrestrial being,
right?
But that being is not what we commonly think of an alien bound to another planet, but rather it's actually a being that exists in a supernatural realm.
Yeah.
Is it demonic in nature?
And why would they be? Because there is a lot that proclaim that it's been anti-Christ. I mean, why would that be? There is, in my mind, no other way to rationalize that, but that it was the work of the devil.
It is very strange that a being, for an intelligent life form from another planet, would show up on this one, and one of the first things they would want to talk about is why you're wrong about Jesus.
Yeah.
That is
Come
strange,
on.
right? Of all the things that might be a subject of conversation, um, another more evidence for this is that people who have had some of these encounters also report that if they call out to Jesus or pray to Jesus, the thing disappears.
Yeah.
So there's evidence to suggest that this is spiritual in nature, right? And the question is then, and I mean this is speculative territory again, but why? What is the benefit for a malicious supernatural entity to pose as an extraterrestrial?
Yeah. Well, the idea of disguising their identity um, seems to me to make some logical sense. If I mean, I guess this raises a question of like, does it behoove the enemy, or does it benefit Satan to promote a naturalistic worldview amongst humanity? I think it does.
Yes, the answer is yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
to deny the supernatural,
Right.
right?
One of to paraphrase C.S. Lewis, one of the most devious things the devil has done is to convince people he didn't exist.
That he didn't exist.
Well, I
right.
mean, proof of his existence proves supernatural, which
Which
proves
gives
God's
it gives
existence.
evidence towards God's
Yeah.
existence. So this
Yeah.
is I think it would make sense that especially in our secularized, scientific, influenced societies, that the enemy would disguise itself as being an alien.
Still outlandish.
It's still outlandish, but in terms of the popular reception of this, people are very willing to entertain the idea of aliens.
Yeah.
Well, it's the intrigue. I mean, to me, it's like almost blurring the lines, like extraterrestrial and the supernatural. They kind of like, and you see a lot of that like in like the alien movies and
Yeah.
stuff. It is like very similar, but
Yeah.
like it is more of like a naturalist
Yeah.
way. It's putting the supernatural into our world by making it weird.
I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that's exactly right. It's a naturalistic gateway to something like transcendence.
Yeah.
That's
And
right.
the late great Michael Heiser, who is a great resource on this subject from a Christian perspective in general, but I heard him make the point that this is a way for non-religious people to have a sense of spirituality and a sense of the transcendent, because there's a sense of wonder, right? The fact that there's extraterrestrial life. Oftentimes, these aliens, which we are saying are probably supernatural beings, try to enlighten people with new knowledge or new wisdom, and there are people who get very invested in this, and it changes the way they live, right? It speaks to some core fundamental things about how they live their life, what they believe about the universe and our place in it. Like, this is a vehicle under the guise of naturalism, a more advanced natural being. This is a vehicle under that guise to spread what I believe is sometimes demonic philosophy, demonic beliefs.
I think that's true, and this sort of literally reaching for the stars, the transcendent, something that we don't have access to, and having this be this sort of gateway to the transcendent, but in the shell that you're describing, Courtney, of something that's, well, we're going to get rid of sort of the things, the aspects of the supernatural that we're uncomfortable with, and yet still try to scratch that itch.
Yeah.
I think that's probably true, and I think it's interesting that people will take this in the realm of the ancient aliens hypothesis.
Yeah.
I think is very much a clear example of this.
Oh yeah.
Where people will try to say this idea that well, maybe the Earth was seeded.
Yeah.
The reason why we're here is because it's this idea that extraterrestrials sort of planted seeds of humanity on the Earth and then left us and let us sort of evolve or whatever,
Interesting.
and that they come back periodically and check in on their garden, so to speak.
The idea that the pyramids were built by aliens, the idea that ancient scriptures are really if you read between the lines and know what to look for, are records of
Right.
extraterrestrial
And people want to
So-
talk about like the Anunnaki and all
Yeah.
these different things.
So they're like deifying, is that a word?
That's
They're
right.
deifying aliens?
Well, they're secularizing it, secularizing religious, ancient religious sources, but with the end, but it circles back around. You're right, into a sort of weird re-deification.
Yeah. So it's like, so
interesting.
you could frame it as they're deifying this idea of alien creatures, or they're naturalizing the idea of gods.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the interesting thing about, I mean, there's a few interesting things about that. One, it connects to a lot of the topics we've talked about in other podcasts too.
Mm.
This idea, this Promethean idea, Prometheus who steals fire from the gods,
Mm.
right? Or the idea of the reception of knowledge from transcendent beings,
Yeah.
right? So in other words, the aliens gave us the knowledge of how to build the pyramids, or how to have
Yeah.
civilization, or do all of these different things. Whereas, we know from the biblical point of view, this is that whole Genesis 6 kind of perspective.
Are there people out there that believe that the Nephilim were aliens?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
For sure. And they loop it into all this other things that Jeremy was talking about. So it's like this idea, and it is like I said, it's this Promethean idea. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a movie called Prometheus about this very concept, right? It's a part of the Alien franchise, where the origin of humanity is in some sense tied to this extraterrestrial thing. And I think that it really is just a sort of perversion. It's a want to have your cake and eat it too. We want to affirm the transcendent source of our being and our knowledge, and yet we want to deny. We want to have a form of godliness, but deny the power thereof, as the scripture says.
Yeah. Or a form of that is assuming that we can take all of that power for ourselves and put it at our own disposal.
Yeah.
That is the inherent message of the naturalism in this.
Yeah.
Is that if we listen to the aliens, if we receive their wisdom, we will become, powerful, enlightened, whatever, like they are. And that, this sort of like grand transcendence that we're a part of is actually all for us.
Well, and some people will take it. A lot of podcasters are way into this. Not these podcasters, who will want to sort of blur the lines between an extraterrestrial intelligence that's transcendent beyond us, and also some people will frame it as interdimensional beings, right?
Yeah.
Right. Which I think they want to lump in the same category as say that these are like, very advanced intelligences.
Because sci-fi has conditioned us to think, well, if we're good enough at science, we can hop between dimensions, and it's all naturalistic.
So what lots of people have done, which I think is connected to this UFO and abduction kind of thing that we've been talking about here, is they will take psychedelic drugs.
Mm.
And when they take these psychedelic drugs, many people report encountering an intelligence.
No dip.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are terms
What do you
for them.
expect?
And the some people, I believe one associated with LSD is people have routinely reported seeing what they call machine elves, which is like a very weird drug culture term for strange.
Another good name for a band.
Machine elves?
Yes. So, supernatural, some types of beings that I would say are supernatural. And the weird thing is that a lot of these have fairly standard appearances, like reptilians and lizard men are fairly commonly encountered.
That's interesting.
This sounds really weird, but it is something that, like, you it's so common that you have to think of, okay, either the human brain is hardwired to hallucinate particular things, or there's a supernatural being that's choosing to consistently portray itself this way, or a combination thereof.
And there's a consistent testimony of people who've encountered these quote unquote beings, or some people will singularize it and say like they felt a presence of a intelligence. And a common report is this feeling or this sense of enlightenment.
Yeah.
Right. That everything makes sense. And of course, I want to view this through a biblical point of view, a theological point of view, and say, look, what you're having here is not an interdimensional or maybe it is interdimensional depending on your view of that, but extraterrestrial kind of encounter. What you're having is a spiritual encounter, and this motif that we've pointed out on the podcast over and over of the temptation of forbidden knowledge, of the enlightenment of that's unauthorized, is a real. It's an enticing thing to people, but it's a real danger, and I think that people can fall into this trap. Scripturally speaking, and I know some scholars would disagree with this, which is fine. I think that there's some merit to this concept, which is that the term used constantly in the New Testament for witchcraft is, or some variation of that word, is pharmakia.
Yeah.
Pharmakia is where we get the word pharmacy,
Right.
Which is this idea that mind altering substances are connected to the supernatural.
It's a very important term for the development of postmodern philosophy also, but that's a little Easter egg. Maybe we'll talk about that at some point.
And so it's not from a theological point of view, it's not surprising to me that you could take some kind of substance that alters your brain state or alters your body chemistry in such a way that now there are your mind, right, which is your mind, which is an immaterial thing, and your brain, which is a material thing, that work together. That now, because you've altered your brain states, that now your mind is in a position that it is more receptive to other minds, so to speak.
And some people would say, okay, you're right, this is supernatural. And you're right that your narrow-minded Bible says this is bad, but it's not actually bad. These beings are just trying to help us. What I would say in response to that is many of the people who have these experiences report deep feelings of unease. They report being tortured by these beings. They report a malice, a deep-seated malice, and that even if they think these are visionary, interesting experiences, they walk away being kind of traumatized by this. And that's something that's
even
consistent.
like sexual in nature.
Yes.
I mean,
Many
it
of them
really,
are,
it really, I think, just shows me too that the enemy knows the entry point into humanity. It was from the beginning with the original sin, and then with the Nephilim, and it's this impartation of forbidden knowledge. And there's there's this craze right now with aliens, and that's why we're talking about it today. But I think he knows entry points into humanity, and he uses that to impart things that we shouldn't.
And just a word of caution, because I know this is a thing amongst young people. The word of caution is, Jeremy pointed out that a lot of people are having a negative experience with these kinds of encounters. But I would also say that the scripture says that Satan is an angel, having a messenger, having the appearance of light. Right, which means that I should expect that even if it walks and talks and looks like a good guy, that doesn't necessarily mean that it is. And we need to be very, very cautious about which doors we open, and which intelligences you are entertaining. Because there is grave danger in this.
If you're skeptical towards government agencies and organized religion, you should also be skeptical of these powerful supernatural entities.
Well, I mean,
it behooves you to spread that skepticism around equally, and to see what of this actually has merit. Because a blind trust in these things is a pathway to intense harm for yourself and destruction.
A lot of the like popular things right now, I think we could get into, like tarot reading and what is it, the like astrology and the what is the like your birthday, what is it called? Like you believe in your Scorpios. What is it called?
Your sign, your astrological sign.
Yeah. But I mean, all of that I think is just a slippery slope into that realm that we have no business going into.
So I want to bring this back a little bit though, because in our audience there might be someone who, like you, has seen a UFO
Yeah.
or has had maybe even a more extreme encounter with something that was like, well, that seems like an alien. And so for those of you listening, I don't want to say that, like, hopefully you've gotten the impression we don't think you're crazy,
No.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like we
yeah.
think, like, no matter what the explanation is, like we think there's most of the time something real there.
Right.
It's just a question of what
What it
is
is.
its fundamental nature.
Yeah, we're taking these claims seriously. The UFO, the abduction, all of those different kinds of phenomena. We're taking them seriously because we could just say, oh, they're all fakes and frauds, but that's not the case. I think what we're saying is that there is a real, in some cases tangible, in some cases transcendent explanation for this activity, but I just want to tell people to be open to the fact that this might be explained by more than one thing. It could be, and from a Christian point of view, it's consistent with the fact that there could be alien beings,
Yeah.
right? But it also might be something spiritual,
Yeah.
or it might have something to do with government secrets and things like that as well. So, and I almost want to say it might be all of the above.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing, which I think is a very important point, is that, when we think in the abstract, we think of things in terms of neat categories. What we're really talking about with extraterrestrials, UFO phenomena, alien encounters, that kind of thing, we're talking about a bunch of very different experiences
Yeah.
that for convenience we kind of lump together, but probably don't belong together at
Right.
all. And
Right.
so having a sense of like, well, it could be any of a number of things, and each individual experience has to be taken on its own terms.
Yeah.
It's important to bear that in mind. I also don't want to give you the impression that if you see some sort of like weird lights moving around in the sky that you're demonized. Like
Yeah.
that is
No.
not what we're saying at all. But I think you should be open to the idea that there's supernatural stuff going on.
Yeah.
You should be open to the idea that there's an airplane up there that nobody really knows about. And
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is, E.T., Stitch, I welcome you into my community. All the rest of y'all, get out of here, Satan.
You don't want Yoda? Yoda's not cool?
No, that's too nerdy for me. Sorry, Yoda.
Okay, fine.
All right. Well, thank y'all for tuning in. Hopefully we gave you something to chew on today, and we'll see you next time.